On Halloween night, the line between the living and the dead grows perilously thin. Behind every flickering jack-o'-lantern and echo of children's laughter lies something darker. Tonight, I'll tell you 3 Halloween stories so chilling that they'll make your skin crawl. But be warned, these are not just tales. They are whispers of the macabre, secrets never meant to be shared. So, turn off the lights, settle in, and remember, you're not truly alone. Story 1, The Forgotten Mask. In a small town nestled between shadowy woods, there was a Halloween tradition unlike any other. Every year, residents held a costume contest at the old community hall. But the rule was clear: no store-bought costumes. You had to craft something unique. It was Halloween night when Megan, a shy teenager new to town, decided to participate. She didn't have much time or money, so she rummaged through the attic of her creaky, rented house. There, she found an old mask hidden beneath a pile of moth-eaten clothes. It was unlike anything she'd ever seen, hand-carved with grotesque features that seemed to shift when the light hit them. The eyes were dark, hollow, and haunting, and the mouth twisted into a perpetual scream. There was no maker's mark, just a strange symbol etched inside the lining. Megan thought it was perfect. Creepy, but perfect. At the party, her mask was an instant hit. Everyone wanted to know where she got it, but Megan coyly said it was her secret. As the night wore on, the mood shifted. One by one, people began avoiding her. They whispered, pointed, and left the hall without explanation. Confused, Megan went to the restroom to take the mask off, only to find it wouldn't budge. She yanked and twisted, but it felt as if the mask had fused with her skin. Frantic, she ran outside, only to see the townsfolk staring at her in horror. An elderly woman approached and whispered, "You found it, didn't you? The mask of the forgotten." Megan begged for help, but the woman only said, "You'll see them soon." Before Megan could respond, a cold wind blew through the crowd. Her vision blurred, and the world shifted. In an instant, the once lively Halloween celebration was gone. The streets were silent, abandoned, and shrouded in fog. And then she saw them, shadowy figures watching her from every corner. Their hollow eyes mirrored the mask she now wore. Megan screamed, but it only echoed back in the empty void. No one ever saw her again. The mask? It was found weeks later, back in the attic, waiting for its next victim. Story 2, The Candy Bowl Curse. Every neighborhood has that one house, the one parents warn their kids to avoid. On Oak Ridge Lane, it was number 17. Old Mrs. Wren lived there, a recluse with a reputation for being strange. But on Halloween, her porch light flickered on for the first time in decades. A candy bowl sat on her steps with a note, "Take one and be polite." 9-year-old Tommy wasn't known for following rules. Dressed as a pirate, he strutted up to the house, grabbed a handful of candy, and stuffed it into his sack. His friends watched nervously as he waved at the darkened windows, shouting, "Thanks, old lady." That night, Tommy's fun ended early. As he dumped his candy on the floor, he noticed something odd. The candies he'd taken from Mrs. Wren's bowl weren't like the rest. They were wrapped in faded, waxy paper, and each one had a strange symbol scrawled on it, like ancient runes. Ignoring the unease in his gut, Tommy popped one in his mouth. It tasted bitter, but he chewed and swallowed. At 3 a.m., Tommy woke to scratching sounds at his window. He peered out, but there was nothing. Then he heard it again, this time at the closet. Heart pounding, he opened the door to find a small, shadowy figure crouched inside. Its voice was a whisper that grew into a roar, "One. You only take one." The figure lunged, and the next thing Tommy knew, he was in bed, drenched in sweat. His candy bag was gone, and in its place sat one single piece of the cursed candy. The next morning, Mrs. Wren's house was boarded up again, her porch light dark. Tommy tried to tell his parents, but they didn't believe him. Over the years, others tried to take more than one piece from her bowl. None of them ever celebrated Halloween again. Story 3: The Lantern's Light. In the rural outskirts of Maine, Halloween was marked by an old superstition. It was said that if you saw a lone lantern flickering in the woods after dark, you were never to follow it. But teenagers being teenagers, 17-year-old Jess and her friends decided to test the legend. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they ventured into the woods on Halloween night, laughing off the warnings of their elders. An hour in, the air grew colder, and the forest unnervingly quiet. Then, they saw it, a lantern glowing faintly in the distance. "See? It's just a dumb story," Jess said, marching toward the light. Her friends hesitated but followed reluctantly. As they approached, the lantern moved, leading them deeper into the woods. The trees seemed to close in, their branches twisting like skeletal hands. The air smelled of decay. Jess reached the lantern first. It hung from a gnarled tree, casting an eerie, unnatural light. Beneath it was a pit, shallow and filled with bones. Before they could run, the lantern extinguished. Darkness swallowed them. Then came the whispers, dozens of voices overlapping, "Join us, stay forever." Jess's screams echoed through the forest, but when her friends turned back, she was gone. The lantern reappeared, hovering over the pit. Her friends fled, never speaking of that night again. But the legend grew. Every Halloween, a new lantern would appear, and with it, another victim. Jess's face is said to be among those haunting the woods, her screams forever echoing in the night. 3 stories. 3 warnings. And yet, every Halloween, there are those who dismiss the dangers, who think the darkness is just for show. But the truth is, some tales aren't fiction. Some masks can't be removed, some candy bowls carry curses, and some lanterns lead to your doom. So, this Halloween, remember, every whisper, every shadow, and every flicker of light might be something, or someone, you'd rather not meet. If you enjoyed these tales, don't forget to subscribe and join me for more stories that will keep you awake at night. Until then, sweet dreams.